Andrew Hogue here for Hogue Metal. Hope you're enjoying the program, and it's great news that this band will be back in our country very, very soon. They've just unleashed their 11th studio record. It is titled Plagues of Babylon. We do have main man Jon Schaffer from ICED to talk to us all about the latest record and the up-and-coming tour and his views on the, I guess, possibly looming zombie apocalypse. G'day, John. Welcome to AndrewHogue.com.
G'day, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. How you doing?
Really good, man.
Well, it certainly was a privilege to finally have the band in Australia a few years ago, and it certainly wasn't, certainly a lot of fans were not disappointed to see the band come to Oz for the first time. And again, we are looking forward to having the band back in Australia shortly with the second tour and also a brand new record under your belts, which is perfect timing. Let's just talk straight right into the brand new record called Plagues of Babylon. Obviously, Stu certainly is a fantastic fit to the Iced Earth sound. The last record and even now really shows that, there's some sort of... it really solidifies his skills in the record. Was this a difficult record to make at all?
No, there were some challenges because it was the first album I produced, by myself, and we were recording in Germany. So, I've worked with 4 different engineers in 3 different studios, so it was different environments, control rooms that I wasn't used to. But the album, the songs were strong. That's the most important thing, and I was able to communicate well with the engineers that I was dealing with, and overcome the challenges that we were faced with. I think to make a very strong, organic and heavy sounding album, which was the goals that I set, back in January, February when I started writing. So.
Quickly talk about members. Obviously, stranger to lineup changes within the band. Is John Deddy going to be a permanent fixture for the group? Because I know he's been touring with you guys recently.
Well, I don't know about that. He's committed for the world tour that kicks off in January, and currently we're booked until the end of August next year. So, there's a good chance. I like John. I think he's a really good guy, very capable drummer, and we had a good time on the run that we just did with Volbeat in Europe. We just did a 20 show. Well, we did like 35 shows with him, something like that. But Raphael did the first part of the tour, the club part, and then John came in and did the arena part. And he seems to enjoy himself. We certainly had a good time, but I'm always a little bit leery about saying anybody's a permanent member because it seems like life gets in the way sometimes, and then we'll just have to see. But he's cool and he's a great drummer.
And I think one thing that needs to be commended, of course, to you is your absolute dedication and passion to not just Iced Earth, but the music of heavy metal. We look at the industry today, and a lot of people just can't sustain a career because of the changes, and others just opt out because financially it's just not viable anymore. Obviously, the band has gone through several ups and downs over the years, and you're pretty much the forerunner of the group from day one. What is your motivation to keep doing what you do for Iced Earth? And did you ever think that your band would still be around after 25 years and releasing, album number 11?
The motivation is this is who I am. I'm a songwriter, and I happen to be a pretty rebellious, anti-establishment kind of dude. So, there's not really too many other forms of music that fit. Heavy metal for me it's a way of life. It's the real thing, and it's a commitment that I made many years ago. And this is what I do. There is no other option or no desire. There are other options, and I guess at some point when I feel like I want to retire from doing this, I certainly would see doing production as a possibility, and maybe managing artists, because I know so much about how this business works. But I don't have any desire to see that happen anytime soon. I'm still very hungry and full of piss and vinegar, as we say in the States, and the march is on. We're actually taken the band, and yes, it is a difficult time because the music industry itself is sort of in a, it's a big change. The old business model is dead. So the way music was sold before, it's gone, and it's going to continue to erode. And I think, though that will be difficult in the interim, I think ultimately for a band like Iced Earth who's established, it's going to be way better for us financially when we can finally be completely independent, because I think that's where things are headed. And I think within the next 3 to 5 years, time will prove me right on that, because the old business model is collapsing. There is no, it's just, in the States, there's barely any retail stores left. There's a few, but not many. And I don't see, if you look at a place like Best Buy, I don't know if you're familiar with Best Buy, but it's a huge chain that used to have 10 or 12 rows of music, and now they're down to maybe 2, and a physical product. So their floor space in their stores is being taken up with other things that actually sell. And I think it's a double-edged sword. It's one of those things that the internet has been great for so many things, and it's also it allows people to steal music digitally in full fidelity, which happens a lot. But I also know that there's the diehard fan base they always want the physical product. They want the artwork. They want the cool extra stuff that we put into the package. So I think for Iced Earth, it's a challenging period, but I think for us in a few years, we're going to really prosper from all these changes. Being a baby band growing up in this climate, I don't know, man. It would be difficult. It's going to be a real challenge, I think, for bands that are just starting out to really get their music out to as many people as possible, because there's so much saturation. You have the tools to do it with the internet, but it's everybody and their brother has a fucking band now.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's one of those things like, how are you going to stand out amongst the millions of other guys around the world that are trying to do exactly the same thing?
Yeah.
It's a tough period.
Well, it's something I did mention to Tom Araya when I caught up with him at the Soundwave Festival. We talked a bit about, the internet, as you said, it's a double-edged sword, but I think in a lot of ways for newer bands, they're not aware that it's somewhat of an illusion, because they think, well, we're going to get to a successful point than bands that have taken 30 years to get there. We'll get there quicker, but generally, as you mentioned, there is an absolute saturation of artists out there, and especially when we get bombarded with a lot of music for the station, of course. And there's some good stuff out there, but sometimes I'm finding a lot of emulation coming through and not a lot of originality. And that is, a harder thing. Some of these players are phenomenal, but when you know that they're doing a sound that someone else has done the last 15, 20 years, okay, nothing wrong with influence. You sort of think, where is the future headed when it comes to original music? Are you discovering new bands these days? Are you interested in checking out new bands that are up and coming in the metal genre?
Yeah, it's not that high on my priority list, but because I'm so busy, man. You have to understand, I'm consumed with Iced Earth 24/7, and yep. I haven't had any kind of a vacation since 2009. So if I hear about another band, it's usually from friends of mine or something. It's not like I'm out searching for it, because I simply don't have the time to spend on that kind of stuff. But I'm really into Ghost, who's a fairly new band.
Yep.
I discovered a band, Michael from Volbeat and I were getting in a shuttle somewhere in Europe going to a store, and we heard Mumford and Sons on the radio, and we're both looking at each other like, who the fuck is this? And the driver of the shuttle told us, and we got to the record store, and we both bought copies, and I've become a huge fan. Now, they're not metal at all, but they're really cool. So for me, I don't care if it's country or folk or heavy metal or black metal or whatever. If it's good, if there's good songs, I like it. But actively, am I out looking for new bands? No, I'm not. I have friends that are into that, and they usually turn me on to something that's worth listening.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the brand new record, Plagues of Babylon. Now, you and I have spoken over time just regarding, the state of the world today, and especially in your country, the US of A, regarding, the government, and there's just so many things that are changing. Now, I'm aware over the last couple of years you've sort of somewhat had an awakening, as many call it, to do with the world around us, and it's certainly quite evident in a lot of the lyrics of the last couple of Iced Earth releases. How do you view things these days when you see a lot of things, especially on TV, that most people are put into the thought process that they're supposed to believe everything they see, and some people actually do? Do you find yourself still very, very skeptical about what you're being told these days, and feeling a lot of frustration still? Or, I mean, how deep down the rabbit hole are you, Jon Schaffer?
Well, dude, I don't watch TV, so that tells you that. I don't trust anything they say.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, it's so much pomp and pageantry and bullshit. It's lies, lies, lies after lies, lies, lies. I mean, of course, they're going to give you the blatant truth sometimes. I mean, they definitely they tell you what they're doing, but you have to really be able to read between the lines if you're going to watch any mainstream media. I can't do it, man. When I go into a hotel room, I don't turn on my television. Never. I just feel like it's an insult to my intelligence. It's an assault on my senses, and I can't do it. I just will not allow myself to go there. I feel violated every time I get around the television and I hear, whether it's news or just the garbage that they're shoving down the public's throat. I mean, okay, I like to be entertained too. Sometimes there's a cool TV show or there's a cool movie or whatever. But, the amount of time that people in the West spend in front of the television is scary, man.
Yep.
And I just refuse to take part in that shit anymore. I don't even own a television anymore. And I certainly don't, I just can't do it. So I've disconnected from that. I mean, if that means being deep down the rabbit hole, then I guess I am. But, nothing's getting better. That's for sure. It's just getting worse. And, the financial situation, the whole situation is out of control.
Now, how do you find with obviously the lyrics you've penned the last couple of records on these sort of topics? A lot of fans today tend to want to use music as an escape from the real world and the realities around us. How do you feel fans, digest the lyrics of the band? Do you think they start to sort of understand where you're coming from with a lot of the words you've written over the last few records based on these sort of thoughts and things like that? Do you think that some fans feel like it might be a preaching thing, or do they think that you're skeptical / another conspiracy theorist? Have fans addressed some of these topics that you've put on the record, or had some sort of relation to them at all?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, I don't know, in terms, like, obviously the Sons of Liberty stuff, there's no hiding what that's about.
Yep.
It's pretty blatant and in your face. And I definitely got a lot of that, conspiracy theorist, he's crazy, he's an extremist kind of shit. With the Iced Earth stuff, not so much, but the interesting thing is that there were magazines and people who wouldn't even talk to me about Sons of Liberty that thought that it was so extreme that when Dystopia came out, ended up doing big feature stories and spoke about Sons of Liberty through the entire interview. And even to the point where there was one magazine, a big one in Germany, that did their own research and then started using quotes. It was like a 4 or 5 page interview, small print, and they were using quotes from Woodrow Wilson and, the Rockefellers and whoever. So it was clear that even though they didn't want to touch me with a 10-foot pole when Sons of Liberty came out, that everything that I was saying is going to happen and is happening became more obvious to the public. And then within a couple of years, they were willing to discuss it to a pretty extreme level. And that wasn't just one occasion. That happened several times. So, I mean, it seems like the things that I were saying with Sons of Liberty have, been validated. Many of the points have, even by people who were refusing to admit that something like this could be going on. So, it kind of goes both ways. The other thing is, it's the beautiful thing about lyrics is it's up to the interpretation, that the person has. Somebody could read the lyrics of the first 6 songs. I mean, all of the lyrics actually on Plagues of Babylon are pretty relevant, I think, but the first 6 songs, somebody might read it and think it's just purely a horror story. And in fact, they wouldn't be wrong, because it is. But there is some elements of reality in there, and it's not, and the last thing I want to do is come off as preachy, because I'm not. I mean, I can see somebody thinking that, certainly, especially with Sons of Liberty. With Iced Earth, it's veiled in such a way that I think it would be very hard for somebody to say that it comes off as preachy and as, I don't know, like propaganda, because it's not. It's not about politics, man. It's about liberty versus tyranny. Whatever you want to call it. That doesn't mean left or right. We're not picking a position or some party that we stand with. I think they're all shit. We're just free individuals and free thinkers. Iced Earth is not music for the masses. It's not for the dumbed down public. We don't want any part of that. They can listen to Justin Bieber and fucking Britney Spears all they want. That's cool. But that's not what Iced Earth is. We are more interested in dealing with an audience that is intelligent. And I think most heavy metal fans are far more intelligent than mainstream fans. In fact, I know they are. And I would rather have that kind of a fan base any day than this corporate mainstream fucking garbage that gets shoved down everybody's throats constantly.
And also, do you feel that with the sort of lyrics, I just said, people can interpret them different ways, still kind of outline some kind of just an awareness for people, just to sort of start to sort of wake up in some form and sort of take note? I mean, there's lots of bands I'm discovering as well that certainly are delving into these sort of topics. Some of them are very, very direct in their delivery. Others sort of put it out on the table and see who sort of takes it or leaves it, in a sense. But I think there's no denying that there is certainly a shift that is happening and will continue to happen, not just in your country, but of course on a global scale.
I think you're right, man. I agree. There's no doubt. I mean, if I look at it, 4 years ago, the difference that I'm seeing in terms of people waking up and the conversations that people are having about real things, not just American Idol or The Voice or some fucking garbage like that. It's actually real issues. And I don't think that these criminals have everything sewn up. I don't think it's that it's destiny that they're destined to be the victors. I think they have a very, very powerful system in place, but there's something to be said about the human spirit, man. And it doesn't have anything to do, for me, it doesn't have anything to do with Christianity. A lot of people wake up to this information and they immediately run to Christianity or some form of religion because they're scared. And I think it's just, to me, organized religion is bad. I don't have anything against Christians or Muslims or anything. I just think that it's another mechanism of control over the human being and the human spirit. And for me, it's all about the human spirit. And I think, the human spirit is a hugely powerful thing. And as much as these guys at the top are trying to control us, I don't think that victory is predetermined. I think we got a shot. And the more we wake up and the more we talk about real things, the better off we're all going to be.
Well, that's definitely true. You touched on a good point there. I got some great friends in Bangkok in Thailand, and there's been recent protests over there. And obviously, the last form that they had was several deaths, but the most recent one saw, I think, about 5 million protesting, at least marching, and it was an incredibly peaceful protest. I think there was only like 4 or 5 people, of course, sadly killed, but they reckon that there is a big movement and a shift, and people are starting to be quite fed up, and especially getting that many people in that country to the point where they just said, look, we're not going to, take it, pardon the pun, to its sister, shows that, people, again, as you said, joining together with a human spirit and hopefully in a peaceful manner, anything's possible.
Yeah, that's right. I would be so proud of my country for a change, because I haven't been proud of it in a very long time. But if we could get 5 million Americans to go and arrest these criminals in Washington, D.C., I would be thrilled. It would be a day for a celebration, because, it's what's got to happen. I mean, these people are not going to give up their power, and I would love for it to be peaceful, but they have put us in such a state where, you can't even just not comply from. You have to pay taxes. They set it up so long ago that the employers take people's money right out of their paycheck and give it to the government. So it's not like the people can even withdraw from being a tax slave and starve the beast. They can't do that. And these people will never give up power. So I'm afraid it's going to have to come down to a mass movement where the people literally rise up and go in and physically remove these scumbags from power. And of course, you have to have you have to have somebody else to take the seats, and then you have to hope they're not going to be corrupt pieces of shit, you know. So it's I mean, the human condition is difficult, believe me. You know that.
I understand that very much. Well, we haven't got you for long, so let's check out those tour dates for, of course, Iced Earth returning to Australia. First show is on the 14th of March at the Hi-Fi Bar in Brisbane, the 15th at the Manning Bar in Sydney, the 16th at Billboard, the venue in Melbourne, and also for those in New Zealand, you're heading to Auckland on the 18th of March, playing at the Studio. Thanks so much for your time, John. We can get you to choose your favourite track from the latest record, Plagues of Babylon, and maybe a couple of last words to the Australian fans.
Well, I don't know. It's difficult to choose one favorite song, but I'm going to choose Highwayman because that has my brothers on it. You know, it's got Russell from Symphony X and Adrenaline Mob, Stu, of course, and Michael from Volbeat, and me all singing together a song that means so much to our brotherhood. And it's a country song that we turned into a rock and metal tune, and I love it. It's one of the highlights of the record for me. So check out Highwayman, and I just want to say it's going to be great to be back in Australia. We really had a great time at those shows. The fans were awesome. Lots of passion and love there for Iced Earth, and it goes both ways. So, you know, we'll be seeing you guys soon.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, John. All the best over, the rest of the tour before you hit Australia. And let's check out some Iced Earth right now here on andrewhogue.com. Thanks, John.
Thanks, man. Take care.